I was sitting behind you the night you saw the documentary for the very first time. So I was sort of distracted watching the screen and watching your reaction. What was it like for you to see sort of your life pass before your eyes?
I thought that I would like to have done this all over again.
Why?
You know,
You mean the life? You wanted to live again, or you wanted to redo the doc?
yeah, I'd do the whole thing all over again. I want to do this whole thing all over.
How would it have looked different?
Well, I probably would have put more music into it and less jawboning.
I thought the
More
jawboning
music
was
and
pretty
less
interesting,
jawboning.
though. Did it make
And
you?
I would have chosen from my more recent catalog because we had stuff available. We had some great stuff available that we just did 6 or 7 years ago that was hardly looked at all. So I would like to have seen some of that. So what they usually do, they go right back to the beginning and get the very first thing that ever happened, and there it was. A song which I lost faith in after about singing it for about 23, 24 years on stage. I finally said, I'm not going to sing this anymore.
That's what you get for loving me?
Because of what it says. Yeah, because of what it says.
Tell me why that turned you off so much after so many years.
Well, it's an insult to women. Some people say you could turn that around and it could be the woman doing this song. I say, oh, that's right, so you could. Just think about it. The woman could be talking to the man, but with me, end of that story.
You were that guy, though. So, you were that guy. You wrote
I was, and I was married and a couple of really young children, and I was married to a woman who was very, very philosophical. She was from Stockholm, Sweden, and she took the thing. It didn't bother her.
But it bothered you later.
It did, yes, it did, but it did later on.
Did you ever sort of like the 12-step program go back and say, I'm sorry, or?
It was too late then for that. We had folded years before that. Things had folded years before that.
And the relationship with the kids?
That remained. Well,
that's some good news then.
Yeah.
It was fascinating to me to hear you say, and I'm quoting you, I hate that song.
Oh.
In the doc.
Well, yeah, I guess it's a very, I didn't know what chauvinism was. That's as close as I can get to it as a description. You just aren't supposed to put it into a song, being that early on in my career, I wouldn't think about it much. I wouldn't also think about what was going through my subconscious at the time, very, very much. I would just say, hey, here's a song going, and the next thing you know, somebody has a hit record with it, and there it is.
Huge.
Not myself, but
Number one, wasn't it? Didn't it become?
Well, I think they made it up. Peter, Paul, and Mary made it up to number 5, but before that, Ian and Sylvia had a very nice recording of it as well. They were another group who were a duet. Ian and Sylvia who were there at the dawn of the folk revival, and they had already done. They were the first ever to record any of my material.
It was amazing to see Sylvia Tyson at your documentary.
Absolutely.
Over time, though, doesn't that say something to you? Over history, these people are still dip into your life.
Yeah, she's done very well. She's written a novel and done all kinds of things.
I learned so much about your music, not just that song, but your inspiration for other songs that became global hits. Sundown, for example. What was happening in your life at that time?
By that time, I had moved on to a singular life again.
Meaning?
Meaning I'd gone through my first separation and divorce. And I was, I actually was a bachelor for 19 years. But during that time, there were some relationships. And I remember my first one was with a really good old friend of mine, Kathy Smith. They were sort of downtown. I was out in the country. We were living at that time in a house out in King, and I was writing, and I was getting ready to make an album and getting ready to go on a canoe trip, all at once, writing the tunes and getting ready to go on a canoe trip. And Kathy was in town with her friends there, and they were hopping the bars. They were bar hopping, and you know, down here in the city, downtown. You know, the girls all were downtown, and I started thinking about feeling that little pang of, well, you know, I wonder what they're up to, and that is how that song "Sundown" came to be, and it was just purely imagining falling in favor with someone else other than myself while they were, you know, not that I would have any right to do so, but you do feel a bit of possessiveness or sort of thing that creeps into the picture.
So interesting that you should mention her, because of course her whole story took such a dark turn in their relationship with John Belushi. Did that come as a shock to you?
That happened several months after we broke up, actually.
Had you fallen out of love with her?
I had to. We spent 3 years together, and we had to break it off.
But when she became front page news, this woman you'd been in love with for all those years and now connected to this high profile drug overdose of this famous comedian.
I got a call from the Washington Post. They asked me if Kathy Smith and I did drugs together. I said, nobody sure drank a lot. And they said, thank you very much, Mr. Lightfoot, and that was the end of the conversation.
So drugs were never, I mean, you don't make a secret in the documentary of the fact that you had to go on the wagon.
Oh, that, yeah.
But drugs were never part of the history.
Drinking. Well, I have said many times, I said it right on the stage, none of us is totally free of sin of some kind, one or the other, but I did give up alcohol.
Okay, that's fair.
So, you know, that was the best I could do.
Why did you? I mean, it seems like it was part of the lifestyle.
Well, I was using it as a tool for years and years, as a writing tool. And it got to the point where it was starting to put me to sleep. And I was beginning to do irrational things.
Like
I could feel it happening in my... One time I tried to... it was New Year's. I tried to... There was an office and there was an apartment right next to one another in an apartment building downtown here. And I tried to jump across from the one balcony to the other. I made it. I made it, but it was on the 10th floor.
Oh my Lord, that is death-defying.
Things like that.
That was alcohol.
Yeah, the alcohol. Things like that. But then the record company, I was signed to a big company, you know, Reprise Records in Los Angeles. I made 14 albums there for that company, and they wanted me to stop drinking, and they did. They were getting reports that I had left the stage at a concert over in Britain in the...
Was it true?
Yeah, it was the Dominion Theatre in Piccadilly Circus. We were doing a fill-in theater at the end of a tour because we couldn't get all the people in for the place we were playing in Royal Albert Hall. We had sold out Royal Albert Hall, and we were doing an extra show at the end of the tour in the Dominion Theatre. And by this time, I'd been out there about 18 days, and a fair amount of... I was still drinking at that point, you see. And it caught up to me on that very last night of that extra show, and I got into an argument with a patron from the stage. And it got back, the whole thing got back to the office of the head honcho back in Los Angeles, in the Hollywood Reporter, or something like that. And he talked to me about it.
You don't want to be making headlines that way.
And a couple of the producers talked to me about it. And so finally, one of the promotion guys, Larry Green, here right in Toronto, directed me to a doctor right here in Toronto. But then, is it okay to no, yes? But then Dr. Jack Birnbaum, who's written books on the topic, got me to stop drinking.
So what, like a rehab program?
No, I don't know. It's not rehab. It took 3 months, and but I was able to follow the rules and went off the rails once after 6 weeks. I went off the rails one night. I drank a half a bottle of wine while I was out in Vancouver doing a show there at the arena. I remember it was one of those. It was a wet night in Victoria, and I was playing in the hockey arena in Victoria, and I allowed myself to have a glass of wine. So when I had to report in to my doctor the next week, he said, "How did you do this week, Gordon?" I had to report in every week. I said, well, this week, he said, "Gordy," he said, "you know what I'm going to do with you?" And I said, "What?" He said, "I'm putting you on anti-abuse," he said. "I'm going to put you on anti-abuse." And he started writing a prescription. And I went into such a panic. I said, "Oh my God, please, oh, I promise I will never," and he tore up the prescription. "Come and see me next week," he said.
Wow, that's amazing. That's incredible discipline.
So he got me to stop drinking.
But you did. I mean, and it's
Well,
sort of,
yes,
but in a way it speaks to your whole work ethic. You are such a disciplined professional artist.
So there was a doctor recommended by my record company. So I was really lucky in a lot of ways like that.
How did your writing change when you were sober, when you didn't have that tool?
The coffee and the cigarettes, cigarette smoking increased. Coffee drinking increased. But I kept writing the albums, and I wrote.
And you just quit
Four
smoking.
more albums
When
after
did you
that.
just recently quit smoking, have you not? Or how long ago?
Well, I stopped smoking cigarettes in October.
How's that going?
Good, I haven't had any cigarettes.
Cold turkey?
Well, I mean, like I say, none of us is without sin, and these days, none of us was without sin at all in Canada.
Okay, so let me just do the math here. On October 17th, cannabis became legal in Canada. So was there handing over the cigarettes, but in starting on or continuing with cannabis?
Does it change that? Not much. It doesn't change it much. Do you increase the cannabis? Maybe a little bit, but not much.
But you did it because
the pack of cigarettes a day or more is what where the serious problem is.
And because it was affecting your voice.
Yes. I think I'm still getting over it.
You always said you didn't like the sound of your own voice when you were younger.
That was, that's right. I had to cultivate it around to the point where I found it acceptable.
Why didn't you like it? I mean, the entire world is celebrating you. All these legends from Elvis to you name it are recording your stuff, and you didn't like your voice.
There was too much of that A in there. A what?
What, like a Canadian twang?
Yeah, too
or
much A.
The Aurelia twang?
Yeah. But I worked on it a little bit. I did. I worked on a lot of stuff.
Because you wanted to be perfect, or what drove you?
I wanted to be really professional. I wanted to get out a good sound with my band and everything. I wanted great shows. When they first signed me as a songwriter way back at the beginning of my career, they didn't even know I sang.
You were just a songwriter.
I was just a songwriter, yeah. When the boys picked up on me in New York, down in New York, they thought I was just a songwriter. They had fully expected a First Nations person to walk in their office in Times Square the first time I walked in.
Why?
Because of the name Lightfoot.
Was that
They
right?
thought I was First Nation, yeah.
And do you remember what you wrote? You were writing jingles for them, or what?
No, I had written a couple of jingles.
What did you write? Do you remember anything?
Well,
Come on, give us one.
I remember a couple of things that I did go way back with Don Franks. Wait, I don't know if you know some of these people.
I know the name for sure.
I forget what they were. The one I remember most is when my new management company heard about that too, so they sent me over to Madison Avenue one day, and I met a person there who was one of the executives of one of the big advertising agencies, and they put me in an office and they left me in there for the afternoon to write a beer commercial.
A beer commercial?
Yeah, and I got paid $1,000 US.
And did the beer commercial become a...
No, but I remember what I wrote.
What'd you write?
It went like, I know a place where you can go when the work is done and the whistle blows. A place where people don't pretend when they shake your hand and call you friend. I know a place where I can go when the work and the whistle blows. A place people don't pretend your hand and call you friend.
It's great. Why didn't they buy it?
I don't know. Who will ever know that?
Did it end up...
All I know is I got my check, and
You
I
just wanted
walked
the
out of
money.
there with my manager, and he knew the guy. He knew the guy at the ad agency. They knew everybody down there. I got in with a management company that was just absolutely just the best management. They managed Bob Dylan, and they managed Ian and Sylvia, and they managed Peter, Paul, and Mary, Janis Joplin, the band.
Who was one of your greatest influences at that time then, that you think you learned from and became this professional that you so wanted to be?
Well, it would go Kingston Trio to Pete Seeger to Bob Dylan from there. Kingston Trio, Pete Seeger, Bob Dylan.
You learned from them.
Yeah, right at the dawn of the folk revival in 1959. And I had just come back from music school at that time too.
From California.
Yeah, and I'd gotten a job as a copyist here in Toronto.
I can't believe you were
a publisher.
But you're also working in a bank, weren't you?
That came later. I was lifting tunes off tape for a publisher, lifting tunes and writing them on manuscript.
So it was always going to be your future, music.
Always. Yeah, in grade 12, before I went to music school, I started writing songs in grade 12 thereabouts.
Anything you remember?
Yeah, it was called the Hula Hoop Song.
Intrigued?
Yeah?
Do you remember it?
Sure, I remember it.
Let's have it. 17-year-old Gordon Lightfoot.
The lyric, there goes the hoop upon the floor. It must be the 100th time or more. My hips are raw, my back is sore. The hula hoop has got me where it's got me, and I'm slowly going nuts. The kids in the street are getting the best of me. I'm really beat. I used to be a hero to my kids, but now I'm nothing but a square because I can't hula hoop at all. I used to be the king of the block, the king of the bone, the king of the, not king of the road, the king of the, but since the hoop has made me a droop, I think I'll retire to the shower. I'm getting tired of bending down. I can't seem to make the hoop go round. I guess I'm just a slob and I'm going to lose my job because I'm hula hooping all the time. And the guy that I was playing that for said, Gord, he said, there's some songs, words that you shouldn't, let me give you, don't use the word slob.
Yeah, slob is not very lyrical.
Yeah, there's certain tunes that...
I can't believe you remember
that was what he
the
said.
words. What year was that?
That I was still going to high school. I just learned to drive, and my father lent him his car so I could drive down to Toronto from Aurelia to play this song for this guy at BMI Canada.
So you wanted to be famous?
Well, I had a song, and I
But did you want to be famous?
I mean, the hula hoop. The hula hoop was a craze. It happened after the Korean War, right after the Korean War. But by 1950, they had a hula hoop craze. They were on the covers of magazines. You know.
So it fascinates me, first of all, that you remember every line in that song is very interesting. But here you are now on a tour called 80 Years Strong. A lot of people at 80 are comfortable sitting in their armchair reflecting on a great life, and you are still building this great life.
Well, I've got a great band. We have a great band, and we love playing these tunes. And we play them, and we play 80 times a year, and we do 80 shows a year. And every time I play, if you could read my mind, which is near the end of every show, of course, where it should be. It's not right at the end of the show, but it's about, you know, it's
the first
different.
the first encore.
Yeah, no, I just do one encore. But,
Oh, okay.
it's not on. It's in the show, but it's about 4 shows from the end, because I've got stuff after that I can throw in there.
But do you still love being out on that stage?
Oh yeah, it's getting the shows together is requires thinking about it in between times. You know, thinking about it here at home, thinking about it.
You don't tire of the road.
Pace.
The road doesn't exhaust you.
No, and everybody, all the guys, all my band members. 14 people traveling.
It's a family.
14 people traveling.
Does anything make this tour different with the name, with the number in it, your age in it, 80 years strong? Except
No.
that the standing ovations are probably a lot longer.
Oh, well, you know, I feel good going into the 80s. I mean, I had one thing. Actually, I got knocked out like for 2.5 years one time.
That's the aortic rupture.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about your health, because do you ever feel that you almost cheated death so many times? These things, these frightening medical crises happened and you bounced back after a time.
At that time, I'd been off alcohol for a long time, and I was into conditioning.
Meaning?
Exercising. A lot of people, you talk about exercising, and they say, that's okay for you to say that, buddy, but we don't have time to do that. And that's true. Most people don't have time to do it. But if I got time to do it, which I'm going to do it.
But you're suggesting to me that
still do.
you need to do it for your own, to keep going. This is your glue.
That's
is it?
part of it. The show. I want to do great shows. I want to do every show is like another game.
What do you judge your shows against now? Do you judge it against your last show, or 10 years ago, or mentally?
I think about the one that we had maybe 5 or 6 shows earlier one night when everything was in perfect tune. All the instruments, the guitars are in perfect tune with the keyboards, and the bass was in perfect tune with everything, and the intonation was, you know, it can't be 100% because but 99.9%.
It's pretty good. You are a perfectionist. That's perfectionist territory.
That only happens about once a week. Now, the rest of the time, it's great. The rest of the time, it's great. But then you get that one night when everything is just...
Do you know how rare that is, that once a week you have 99.9% perfection?
But it only happens about once out of every 5 or 6 shows. You can't do it. And the strings wear. The strings wear out on the guitars. And I have 2 12-string guitars, and I maintain my own instruments.
You're tuning your own guitars before every gig?
And plus the maintenance as well. You know, not a fret job.
Because these are your children, or what are they? These.
They have to be they have to be in an absolute pitch. It has to be an absolute pitch. That's how I get my sound. That's why we get the crowd.
Well, you get the crowd also because you're an icon. You're a legend.
They hear about it.
Yeah, they've heard about you for 60 years now.
Yeah.
People love the message you've always written about, and I know that you've got new songs coming out, a new album, and I want to understand, was there something nagging at your brain that you had to write more songs, something you hadn't said yet? Or tell me about the new album.
I found some material that one day while I was cleaning out my office here in Toronto, I found 6 tunes that I had totally forgotten about.
What, half-written lyrics?
No, there were more than just 6. There were actually probably maybe 8 or 9 of them, 8 or 10. But I had some newer stuff, and I said I'll orchestrate the best that I can get out of this lot, which I found out of nowhere. And I don't know if it had something to do with they were written just before I got ill. 2001, they were written just a few months before I had the heart aneurysm. And I didn't know they existed until one day I very providentially found them while cleaning out a mess of old gifts. You call it, I'm talking about the stuff that people, we had a pile of stuff in my office.
And you find a treasure trove.
And while I was there, I found an item with 6 usable basic tracks to begin with, and I already had stuff that I'd been working on. So there was enough for an album, and I said, there's going to be an album for sure, and I know it, so I announced right off the bat, last October, I'm going to make another album. And
have you recorded it?
but it's all recorded.
It's all
Most of it is recorded.
It's ready to go.
The basic tracks are already recorded.
Now, as will longtime fans hear the sound of Gordon Lightfoot of old? Is it new? Put me in the picture on who Gordon Lightfoot is on his, what is it going to be, your 21st album or something like that?
Yeah, I'm trying to get one more tune right now. I have to go into the recording studio in 2 days from now. I have one tune that I want to do over.
Why?
Because it's not, because it doesn't stand up. When I did that stuff, I was at full strength, full health, full vocal, no vocal problems, and playing guitar a lot better than I can play now, because in the meantime, apart from everything else, there's been a stroke and it's damaged my right hand. And so I can't play the guitar as well as I did then.
It's incredible, though. Again,
So
the stroke, the heart.
I found this stuff. I found it.
Wow.
I found this stuff. I've got the unit sitting, my master copy sitting right in my office. I would show it to you.
We're going to go look.
Yeah.
But tell me this. So you told me earlier that your inspiration for your songs, Sundown, if you could read my mind, all of these, the inspiration for your songs came from your life. What did you write about in your new album that's going to be a look at at life? Is there wise words in there on aging? I mean, what is it?
It's going to be kind of funny and kind of philosophical.
Okay, that's a good combo.
Okay.
Funny and philosophical.
Yeah, and really good songs.
Is there a gem like the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald hiding in there?
Not that kind of stuff.
Is there anything in there that you, because I think I read somewhere you said the minute you played the riff on Edmund Fitzgerald, you knew.
Oh, that was Sundown.
Or Sundown.
Yeah.
You knew this is going to be a hit.
Well, when we started working on it, I mean, it became obvious that it had a good beat and it had a good chorus, and the harmony lines were good. And
You said to me earlier, the documentary focused on all that older music and not the newer stuff.
Well, they came up to midstream. They did. I got to give them credit. They came up to midstream.
Okay, midstream.
Yeah,
did you disagree on things then?
I know their work too in the past. I was ready.
Yeah.
They did. I had faith in their ability to carry this out, and they did a very good job on it.
Is it part of your those lyrics, those songs came out of you, out of your experiences? What is the legacy you want Canadians, people, not just Canadians, but what do you see as your legacy?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I want to be a positive influence, or whatever they call it. I don't know. I would like to leave I want to be like Stompin' Tom Connors and leave a great impression.
Well, my friend, you have certainly done that. You have certainly done that. Yeah. And are you proud of your work? You're proud of your contribution?
Not yet. Not yet.
Seriously.
You know, as long as we can keep this thing rolling. I mean, we're doing these shows and everything. We're you know, it's so much fun, and being staying prepared is part of the fun. Like we're here, then we're there, then we're back here again, and then we're out there again. We're just like a team. We're like a sports team, you know, and always trying to improve. And all of my people are very seriously into playing the music, you know. And
you absolutely love it.
yeah, it's fun. The material I've got like the cream of the crop of my material. I've got 4 different shows that we alternate night after night, so we don't get bored. We don't lose the standards. We rotate in the great album material that people want to hear.
Do you think that boy who was 17 years old, who drove from Orillia to Toronto, could have ever imagined that all these years later, at age 80, he would still be doing a new album, a new documentary, and a tour?
I had something in mind. The song that I have was a topical song, and kind of funny. And I said, maybe I write topical songs. I was thinking about the Little Nash Rambler, you know, that song Little Nash Rambler, and stuff like that. You know, it's a topical song, and maybe they might be interested in. Maybe they've heard too much of this unrequited love stuff, and they'd like to hear a topical song. And
what do you think of
borrowed my dad's car, and away I went.
But what do you think of today's music?
It's really well produced, and everything. The intonation is perfect. The beat, the way it's done, the whole thing. It's really well done.
Any particular favorites?
Not necessarily.
What about your neighbor?
Fine. I've had both their albums appear on my desk in my office to listen to when they first started.
Who?
Well, him and Justin both.
Who? Drake and Justin Bieber.
Their stuff has appeared. One of their albums has appeared on my desk in my office.
Before they were anyone.
Yeah. Would you please listen to this, Mister? You know.
Did you give them feedback?
Well, the first time I listened to Bieber's album, I said that, you know, this is a way to the race. This ain't no problem here. You know.
Wow.
And,
so you are the Justin Bieber whisperer. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, I mean, I guess I was the first to hear his album, but with Drake, after he stayed on the top of the charts for 5 weeks, with his, I finally said, okay, that's it, and I went and got the album. The one where he's sitting on the top of the CN Tower. He's sitting up on top of the CN Tower. That was a pretty dangerous thing that he did there.
Listen, from a guy who just admitted to me that you've jumped balconies from the 10th floor of a Toronto high-rise. Come on.
Oh, God. But anyway, I listened to it. I knew why. I immediately knew why. And he talks about a little bit about the girls. He talks about his growing up years. He talks about his home life. And it's all got this fantastic beat and these great arrangements. The song, the arrangement, the vocal. It's all there.
Anything else you want to share on just a life in this country? You intentionally stayed in Canada to create and tell our story. Well,
I could have. I could have moved off down to the States, I suppose, but I didn't have to, and so I didn't have to make that choice. I was of leaving the country, and eliminating all the problems with work permits and all that business, you know, and getting petitioning to go to work down there and all that business, which is really why most of them go there, because to get rid of the hassle of.
But you intentionally stayed in Canada.
But my contacts got established in New York, so I was able to do it through the New York office. They were able to do that for me, so I never had to go through any of that.
So
later on,
wait, are you telling me there's no misty patriotic reason why you stayed in Canada?
They arranged my work permits for me. I mean, I was already in as a songwriter. But now they're finding out that I sing. You see, all of a sudden they find, hey, this guy, does this guy sing too?
Wow.
And so they started getting me in doing concerts down in the States, and they started by booking me into like, they got me to open for the Paul Butterfield Blues Band. The Paul Butterfield Blues Band in the place I just played in last week.
And Bitter End.
For about the fourth time.
In New York.
And then eventually the Bitter End, in places in Cleveland, Chicago.
But why? But my question
Washington,
is, why was it
Los
important
Angeles.
to you to stay in Canada?
I have no problem at all staying in Canada. I really like being here in Canada. I'm really happy that I was born in Canada.
Why?
Because it's a great place to be, and good Lord, I've canoed all over the whole North Country here, too.
And you've written about it.
Yeah, I love this place. I love Canada. There's no need for me to. I don't knock the people who did. You do what you got to do. It has mostly to do with the working situation, the coming and going across the border. And I was able to handle that without having to leave the country.
It's interesting also, we were talking earlier about how a lot of your songs, the legends perform that. I wonder, do you have a favorite version of one of your songs sung by one of the greats, Elvis or name it? They all did them.
I gotta say Elvis. I gotta say Elvis.
Which song?
Early Morning Rain. But Peter, Paul, and Mary did a really great job, and For Loving Me, and although I might say that's the tune that I don't like, they did a very, very interesting tongue-in-cheek kind of version of that song, which had made it up to number 5 in the Billboard chart, I believe it was at the time.
But can you believe it, at the time, Elvis Presley, who was the king,
Yes.
was performing from Orillia, Ontario, one of your songs?
I almost jumped out of the car. I was going 70 miles per hour. I was driving from my mother's house from Orillia one time to Toronto, and I heard it on the car radio.
That's the first time you knew?
The first time I even knew about it.
Did you cry?
On the car register. No, I said I almost jumped out of the car. I got really excited. That's an important thing.
Yeah, no kidding. Did you say, okay, I'm set for life?
Eventually I got to meet him. I just missed him by about 2 minutes. When they played concert there
Did he ever reach out to you?
1972, we went to the show.
Did he ever reach out, though, when he wrote the song, or when he performed the song? Did he ever reach out on any level to say, hey, great work, Gordon?
Yeah, I was supposed to meet him, but they had to go. They had to leave. There was 14,000 people in the place. Later on, I got to meet the people from Concert West who did all of his shows and all those people when I got with Warner Brothers. I was still with United Artists at that time, too.
In the documentary, Anne Murray goes backstage as a young girl.
I remember that.
Okay, so she says you didn't remember anything about that night.
I was probably having a bad day.
Any message to Anne?
No, I thought it was great. I loved it. People were so. I mean, the flattery in this thing is absolutely the compliments.